Yeah, we're live. Hey, this is Sid Owsley from the Determination Determines Destination podcast. The 3Ds to success. Determination determines destination, where we share stories of people who use these three principles to overcome challenges and obstacles in their life. And today I have with me Tyreese McAllister. Tyreese McAllister
Hey,
is a
hi
licensed
everybody.
Tyreese McAllister is a licensed mental health practitioner with over 25 years of experience in the field of emergency mental health, helping individuals who have experienced crisis and traumatic events to recover and overcome through radical resilience. She is a licensed professional counselor, certified clinical supervisor, certified sex offender treatment provider, and certified clinical trauma professional who has extensive forensic training and experience. Tyreese is the owner and chief clinical officer of her private practice, Clinical and Forensic Associates, which serves the Washington metropolitan area located in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. Welcome, Tyreese. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's great to have you.
It's great to be here.
Uh, it's been a long time since I've seen you. It's been a while since I talked to you. And I know you're up to big things and you're helping a lot of people. And so here on the 3Ds to success, determination, determines destination. I always ask people, how do you use these three principles in your life to overcome obstacles and challenges, help other people to do the same?
Okay. Well, I'll just start with my backstory. In 2017, my daughter was murdered. And I knew that I could not just lay down and not do anything, right? Although that's what every part of my being was saying, like life wasn't worth living, it wasn't worth going on. But in the back of my mind, I knew I had a family, I had another child who had just lost her sister, I had a husband who had just lost his baby girl, and I knew that I was going to have to be the one that would help carry my family through this crisis. And it's interesting because I had worked in a crisis arena for 20 plus years at that time. And I remember being on the other end of telling people that their kids had died or their spouse or loved one, or just being a deliverer of really not so pleasant news, and never seeing myself on the other side of the table was a very interesting thing. But in 2017, when my life changed, I was determined not to let the devil kill, steal, and destroy, right, what God had planted in me. And I knew from a young age that God had given me some gifts and talents and wanted me to do some great things. I knew that. And I just knew that I could not, even despite this tragedy, let him do that.
That's right. Right. You dealt with that situation. You dealt with that situation in a very constructive way to not only help yourself but help other people. And
Yeah.
so, with your background, with the certifications you have, tell us about how you help other people deal with these situations
Okay.
using those credentials that you have.
So in my field, credentialing is very important. It gives you the level of experience and expertise. It demonstrates to the world that you have had training and demonstrated experience to do different types of training. And so I would like to say I'm heavily credentialed because that also determines the money I make or can make, right? But it also determines the type of clients I can work with, right? And I want to be able to work with um, lots of clients. My husband said years ago, I was working with some prostitutes in the field of counseling. My husband said, you always want to work with people nobody else will work with. And that's probably my calling. So I have a certification in working with sex offenders, and I work with sex offenders. And somebody's got to, right? Somebody's got to provide treatment to people who are hurting other people. And so, or who've been hurt. And a lot of them have been hurt too. So I like to think of myself as heavily credentialed, trying to do my best. I just believe that people, like when you look at the issue with my daughter, right? People were very surprised that I think she died on a Tuesday morning, and Thursday I had an interview with Bruce Johnson,
Mhm.
and Bruce asked me, if I could say anything to the person who killed my daughter, what would I say? And I remember saying that I will forgive him. I will forgive him. And the reason behind that forgiveness is that I know most people are not born monsters, and that if and the person or persons who were responsible for my daughter's murder, something has happened in their life that they would even pick up a gun, that a gun is even necessary in their life. And that stayed in the forefront of my mind. And so I've been talking about forgiveness since she was murdered. And want people to have an understanding that it takes a village to raise a child. So if you see a child that's in trouble, a child that's going the wrong way, mentor that child. And my husband and I have done that. Actually, my husband has done that even before I met him. Not before I met him, but before we married. My husband was living in Maryland, and he had worked in as a juvenile PO, probation officer, and he had 3 boys that he mentored. And these 3 young men are still in our lives today, and they're all married, all husbands, and doing well. And they were 12 years old when my husband started working with them and has stayed with them. And so these are boys that none of them had their fathers in their lives. One was being raised by a grandmother, one was being raised by a single mother, and the other one, his mother had a major health issue and didn't stay around long. So we literally helped him get into college and everything. So these could have been different stories for these 3 young men had the McAllisters not been in their life.
That is awesome that you took on the responsibility, not just from a professional standpoint, but from a loving standpoint of mentoring those young boys like that, and seeing them grow into men and still being in contact with them.
Yeah.
That's great.
Can I say one thing on that? And I think that's really what our community is missing. Often, as a professional, sometimes I'm the only person in a person's life. I'm a paid professional. And when they talk to me, I'm billing, you know what I'm saying? But they don't have anybody else. And you gotta wonder why people are cold and rude, because they don't have anybody. And I don't believe that God put us in this world to be alone. And that's why we have family, that's why we have friends, that's why we have neighbors, right? And that we should really be checking on people and looking after people. And everybody is not as easy to love, right? Some people, and so I recognize that, but we've got to do better in extending ourselves, especially when people look like us. I'm not going to see children who look like me, who don't have a mother or a father, and I'm just going to walk away. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's what we're missing in our world. And then we wonder why kids grow up and can do some of the brutal things that they do. It's because nobody has ever shown them any love.
Wow. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face when you're dealing with people in these situations? When you're from a professional point of view, when you're counseling them and trying to get them to see things differently, and help them, a lot of these people they're a lot of the basic needs aren't even being met. So trying to change their mind about things can be a challenge. So, how do you deal with that?
So I become very resourceful, right? So even though I am a therapist, I wind up sometimes being a social worker and a case manager, because I can't talk to somebody about changing their mindset if they're hungry, right? I don't care what kind of work we do when people are facing homelessness. No, they're not going to change how they talk to people or how they communicate better, right? They're hurting. And so just being able to find resources that can help people. Even when I was doing sex offender work, again, I'm just a therapist. I am there to change some behaviors in your mindset. However, you can't change people's mindset when they don't have a place to stay, when the legal system is looming over their head, right? So just being able to convince people that while I do get paid to serve, in my field, we don't make a lot of money. So I'm not going to get rich doing this. This is hard work. HEART. This is hard work. Like this counseling and therapy and even the stuff I do beyond is really my ministry, right? It's what I'm here for. And I do it when I'm not getting paid. So my children often brought children home, and would say, introduce me to their friend and say, my mother can help you, and leave, because they knew, or my parents can help you with this. And even though my daughter, she moved away to Richmond, her friends still come around. They call me and my husband, mom and dad, and they seek advice for us. But you got to be in a position to be able to receive that advice, and you got to have some basic things, man. And then the second thing is you got to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
You can't expect people to change. And you got to not be judgmental, right? Like, so I'm not judging my clients that smoke every day, smoke marijuana every day. Like, I try to understand why they smoke, right? And what that's about, and then work with them on the real issue. What's really going on, and why are you really, smoking every day? Not to judge me, because that's not my thing. So that's another thing that really helps me be able to get to clients, not having a judgmental stance. Like, sure, I got a prescription of how we should be living our lives, right? And it's worked for me. But that don't mean everybody's able to take that on. Even like when you look at the murder of my child, often when I meet other parents, they're not where I am, right? And they apologize for that. And I'm like, no, you don't have to apologize for being angry. Like, I get that. I'm not angry, but I get that you're angry. And I'm not better than you because you're angry about it. I just know anger don't work for me. I can't be productive under anger. And so that's my thing. But I'm not, it's not a judgment or people should be where I am. People feel their loss very differently. And so I honor that, and I work with people where they are.
That's great. That's great that you recognize that, like you said, everybody's different. Everybody's at where they're at, and that's where you got to meet them at.
Yeah.
How does this work affect you? Because you're dealing with people who pretty much every time you're dealing with them, they're at their worst situation in life,
Yeah.
and so this is every day. How does that affect you? How do you deal with that?
I eat, I shop. I'm gonna just be transparent, right? Like, I would love to have this story. Like, I have this Zen moment, and I do this. No, but in honesty, it's a very good question. I have to do better at taking care of myself, and I think I do. Like, I'm real good at self care, and I advocate that self-care is more than bath bombs and a massage, although I love both of those things. Like, when the metal meets the road, like, a massage is not going to help me, right, with the real stuff that I'm dealing with, and neither is a bath bomb. And so you do have to be radical in your resilience. You have to be radical about the things you do so that you can bounce back. um and it has to be intentional. Taking care of your mental health has to be intentional. And I do that. However, I do have some unhealthy habits too. Like, what? I eat to stress. So now I got all these COVID pounds, right? That I didn't have before. And so I do have to do better with that. I noticed for me, since my daughter, who was my shopping partner, has died, I do not like going to the mall and shopping like I used to. But Amazon has become like my best friend, like the UPS guy and the FedEx guy, like they know me by name. So I got to do better. You know what I mean? So, and I just want to be transparent about that, because a lot of people, I know people want to hear that I do these things, and I do some good things. So my mind is okay, but sometimes my heart is still, you know, really concerned. And the other thing I do is I pray for my clients, whether they like it or not. I don't pray with them because that would not be ethical, but I pray for them all the time. And I think that has really helped me to be a better therapist, knowing that I'm not the one that's making the magic happen. That often is God, and putting God first. So those are like my go-to. So putting God first, being very intentional about my own mental health, which also could mean having a therapist, right? But and then the unhealthy stuff that I do, recognizing that this is unhealthy and that I need to do better.
Okay. But and yeah, that's important that you recognize you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're saying that.
No, nobody has ever accused Tyreese McAllister of not being good to herself. Like, people are like, Ty, you got to take care of yourself. I'm like, I'm good to me.
Yeah.
Right. But, in just full transparency, there's some things that, the eating, the lack of exercise, I could definitely do better. And that is my goal for 2021 because God has blessed me with some really big things coming up, and I want to be here for it, right? I want to be here. I want to be able to enjoy it. I don't want to be sick. So I just have to shift my mind and bring my behavior along with me.
All right. And speaking of big things, tell us about the big things that you have going on that you're doing at,
I'm so
at your
glad you
organization.
asked. Okay, so the first thing that I have an anthology coming out, which is a collection of authors who have come together to tell their story about mental illness. And I'm very excited about that because this book to me is going to be a game changer because most people really don't think that you recover from mental health, or like if you have a mental illness that you just have it and you're going to be standing at the 7-Eleven with a cup begging. Like, no, it's not that. And I have some people in my book who have serious mental illness, schizophrenia, bipolar, but these people are working, they are contributing to society, and they are doing big things. So I'm very excited about that project, and that should be out the end of January, the beginning of February for pre-sales.
Mhm.
And then when my daughter was killed, said I was trying to share, like talk to the kids in my family because I'm a therapist. Of course, I'm approaching it therapeutically, right? Like these kids that are dealing with a trauma, because we're a family. We are family.
Yeah.
And so I look for books, a book or some books to share with the little people in my family, my little cousins, my nieces and nephews. To explain like this difficult topic of homicide because everybody knows an 18-year-old kid who went to college is not supposed to be dead now, right? So that's a big deal. And so how do you explain that to the 5-year-old? I remember we were at my husband's friend's house and their 5-year-old asked about what happened to Ayana. And the parents' the fear on their face was like, oh my God, I can't believe she did it. But me being a therapist, I was like, no, I know it's okay.
Mhm.
One, she has questions and we can't hush it. And then they don't know how to explain it because it's a difficult topic. So anyway, that's my why. So I wrote a children's book for 5 to 10-year-olds about homicide, and it's also going to have a complimentary guide. It's called the Caregiver Guide to help caregivers explain the different that what homicide is. So it's about 8-year-old Deja who loses her sister in a school shooting. So in that book, we're going to talk about school shootings and what fears children have about school shootings and what questions they might have and how do you help answer a question, because even if there's a school shooting, you still got to go back to school, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when this 8-year-old Asia she goes to therapy and she sees Dr. Mac, that would be me. And in her therapy session are like 6 or 7 other kids who also had losses. And so again, in the caregiver guide, we're going to talk about those losses. So we have somebody who had a loss because of domestic violence, which changes. So when mommy has been killed by daddy, that's a whole different dynamic than a school shooting. When the police officer who's supposed to help me has killed my brother, that's a whole different dynamic. And so the conversations have to be different. So I'm extremely excited about this book because unfortunately, the types of murders that we talk about in this book are real issues in our community. And I want people to be able to talk about it intelligently, and give kids the real information so that they're not hearing it from the news, which might be a little bit too big for a 5-year-old. And it might just be a little complicated, but just some real simple stuff that parents, youth ministers, camp counselors, a teacher can use. I was a part of the response team when the 10-year-old in DC was killed.
Uh,
You remember that? I don't know if you remember that last summer. And what was interesting, she got killed in July, but in September, I was thinking about this teacher has to explain why this 10-year-old is not back in school.
wow.
right? The teacher has to explain that to these kids, or the kids are going to talk about it. And so this is a tool that teachers also can use. So I'm very excited about the potential for the book, how it might help the community. Again, this is not something I'm trying to get rich on, but this is my gift to the community, to help a community of people who may not deal with this on a regular basis.
Mm, that is great. Right. So what are your future plans? What else do you have going on?
I'm also going to start a podcast, and it's called
Right.
Third Thursday Therapy, and it will be out the first in January. And I'll be talking about, and it's Third Thursday Therapy, so we'll be talking everything mental health. So one of the things that I definitely want to talk about is weed smoking, right? And you probably like, Ty, how weed smoking got to do with mental health? And it's not to bash mental health, but it's to really get people to be honest about what they're doing. So I know this young people, they smoke all day. So if you got to wake up in the morning and smoke, and you smoking again at 12 and then again at 3, when you got to leave work and smoke a little something so you can deal with work, that's called medicating. That
Mm,
ain't called recreation,
yes,
right?
sir.
That ain't recreation. And so I'm not saying stop it. I'm saying there's treatment for that. Like if you really have anxiety, if you really have depression, if you have anger issues, and that's why you smoking. Because my husband's a PO. Kids tell him all the time, if I don't smoke, I'm gonna go off, right? And I respect that. You might go off, and we don't want you to go off, but there's a bigger issue there, and I don't want people to think they don't have an issue smoking weed all day. And then
Mm,
when you can't get it, what you gonna do?
yeah.
Right. So really just deal with your issues, and your weed bill might go down. You know what I'm saying? Like I just want to have a practical approach to mental health. Nobody wants to be crazy. People really kind of shun mental health. But if you take care of it, it'll take care of you. And that's a good, like if you take care of your mental health. So when my daughter died, oh, I had my moments, trust me, and I still have them,
Mm,
right? I was depressed. I took medicine myself. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't want to get out of bed. My baby is gone. But the reality is that all medicine is not for the rest of your life. Sometimes we just have tough periods we going through. Well, it might be for the rest of your life. If your doctor tell you got diabetes, you take that glucophage for the rest of your life and you don't have no problem.
mm,
Right? People, so we got to do better with taking care of our mental health. And I get the stigma is really bad. And so I want to address stuff like that. I want people to take care of their mental health. I want people to take medicine if they need it. I'm not a pill pusher by no means, but sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes, even with clients, I'm like, I can't work with you until you settle down. And some of it is your physical presence. And so if you have anxiety, it's not I can do until you can calm your system down. I can't even teach you no skills when you up here. So sometimes medication is indicated, and we want to make sure that people can, just hear the truth about mental illness.
okay. Yeah, it is. You mentioned the stigma, and what do you see around that, particularly in the Black community, that stigma about mental health? What do you see? What the stigma around that? What are you hearing or
Just how
seeing?
we look at it, like nobody wants to be crazy, right? So people do a lot of stuff to pretend like they don't have an issue,
Mm,
including medicating it. But if you own it, you can fix it. You know what I'm saying? Like if you anxious about stuff, and the world is doing some stuff that make anxious about. If you don't, high school students, if you just think about it, you done lost 3 friends. You
yeah.
were, you got to get home from school. You
Mm,
know what I'm saying? Yeah, that you got. I get you. You should be. If you're not anxious, I'm concerned about that,
yeah.
right? But let's talk about, like, how do we reduce that for you or eliminate it for you? You know what I'm saying? So, some things are so normal or natural, but people just, because of the stigma, people just have a very interesting way of thinking about it. And people, quite frankly, would rather be known as a drug user or a drug addict than to have a mental health issue,
Mm,
which is really sad. The things that happen in life, can be very traumatic. We got people deal with trauma all the time. You get veterans, our veterans who've been traumatized. You've been in a war zone. Your life has been at risk for months. Yeah, you should be anxious. You know what I'm saying? There's some stuff there. But if you own it, you can work with it, right? You can treat most of it. And what you can't treat, just like a medical issue, some things you can treat and it'll go away, and some things you just manage, right?
Mhm.
So that it don't manage you. And so mental health is the same way. Some things are not going to go away. Schizophrenia is not going to go away. But if you take your medicine, you can manage it instead of having it manage you. If you're bipolar, most likely it won't go away, but you can manage it so you can still have a relatively normal life. And, so it doesn't manage you. Depression, it goes away. Like I took pills for a few months, some antidepressants.
Mhm.
I stopped taking them. I had to get back on them because it came back.
Absolutely.
And then I'm off of them again. And I feel like I was able to get back to myself, right? And that's the thing about resilience, is either getting back to who you used to be or better than you used to be, right? And so there's still a huge part of me missing. I had two daughters, and one is not here, right? And so that's a huge part of me, but most of the stuff I try to do in her honor. Like the other thing my husband and I did, we have a foundation named after her, the Ayanna J. McAllister Legacy Foundation. And we teach people in the African American community how to advocate for safe neighborhoods. What I noticed is that other communities advocate for safe neighborhoods. They know how to call the mayor and the council member and the state's attorney and everybody to get their neighborhoods to be safe, but we don't. We just tolerate it, right? We tolerate some unsafe stuff. We don't know who to call. We don't make the calls. And so we want to teach people, like, you don't have to put up with this in your neighborhood. You don't have to. You deserve to be safe, and your kids deserve to be safe.
That's right.
And so we want to, we're doing that, and we raise money to give scholarships away, all in her name. So those are the things that kind of help me make her legacy still alive, which kind of helps me deal with, the what would be underlying sadness all the time.
Okay. That's great. Awesome.
Thank you.
So during this COVID situation, what have you seen regarding people's mental health? Have you seen certain types of situations, anxieties, or behaviors uh, be amplified? Have you seen new or different things happen to people that don't usually happen during these type of situations?
Yes, I have. COVID well, I started my private practice the beginning of the year, so in January, and because of COVID, my business is good, right? So good, I got to hire another therapist, which wasn't necessarily in the plan. So business wise, it's been good. But what we're really seeing out here in the field is that people have to really deal with themselves, right?
Mm.
So there's some healthy anxiety about, oh, I might catch COVID. Understandable. There's some anxiety about, oh my God, I'm isolated in the house. But what really is happening is people have more alone time or family time, and people got to deal with some of them issues they just wasn't dealing with, that
Uh,
people were working through, eating through, shopping through. Your child have ADHD, and you didn't want to put that child on medicine, and now you home with that child, and
mm,
you got to really deal with that. That's real talk. Or you have ADHD too, and you trying to get your work done, and you can't get it done at home because you cleaning and moving all about and doing stuff because you also have ADHD.
yeah.
That's me. I mean, honestly, like I'm all over the place at the house. I need a lot more structure. The other things that we're seeing is the depression. Some people have lost a lot of people,
Yeah.
and suddenly, and have not been able to be there with their loved ones. And which really is very disheartening for me. It's very sad for me, for me to have to deal with it. But my heart goes out to people who are dealing with it. So you have what's called complicated grief. It's not just the grief of losing a relative, because we all grieve, but the complication of that grief becomes overwhelming.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. This like you said, this COVID situation has made people like you said, they have to deal with themselves and deal with family members and loved ones on a level that they usually don't have to. So that's
Yeah.
that can be good. It can eventually turn out good if people, seek people like you to help them out, or
Yeah.
do other things. And
Yeah.
I keep hearing the word it's making people reset.
Yeah.
People reset and look at their priorities and what's really important to them in life.
Yeah. Another thing is people have a lot of losses. People have lost businesses and homes,
Mhm.
and those are things that can happen, and those are things people didn't see coming because people were doing well, and then all of a sudden these losses. So that's another thing that's really caused a lot of depression among people.
Yeah, yeah. The financial loss, along with the possible loss of loved ones, is
Yeah,
that's very traumatic.
yeah.
Well, Tyrese, as we get ready to wrap up, tell people how they can get in contact with you if they need help or if they want to seek help for a loved one.
Okay. Well, they get for the clinical practice. It's www.clinicalforensicassociates.com. No S on forensic. Clinicalforensicassociates.com. Or they can go to my private page, which is TyreeseMcAllister.org. www.tyreesemcallister.org.
All right. And if people want to contact me, I can put them in contact with you also.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
been
you for
great.
having me, Sid. It was good to talk to you. We got to get together soon.
Yeah, we got to get you and holler at Mr. Mac.
Okay. Okay. I will let him know.
It was great having you.
All right. Take care. Good to see you. And congratulations on your success. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you very
All right.
much.
All right. Bye bye.
All right. This is Sid Owsley from the Determination Determines Destination podcast, where we share stories of people who use the three principles: determination determines destination, to overcome obstacles and challenges in life. Thank you and have a great day.